Hey everyone, this is Larry. Welcome back to TodayIFeelLike.com. Today we're going to take a look at two MultiSport fitness watches. I have the Coros Apex and the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. We're going to check them out, make some comparisons, and here we go. All right, so the first two things that I want to talk about with these watches are price and battery life. And the reason why I want to jump into those two first is because there are some pretty stark differences between the two watches with both the price and the battery life. And to check them both out, let's hop onto their websites and we can see what some of those differences are. And what we can see here is that the Coros Apex is $349 for the 46 millimeter. Now, the closest they have there on the Garmin Fenix side is a 47 millimeter, and that is $600. It's $599.99. That is an expensive watch. Now, that's not a direct comparison because obviously their screen sizes are just a little bit different. But if we go to the 42 millimeter, which both watches have 42 millimeters, now we're talking about the Coros Apex at 42 millimeters, $299.99. We are still at the same $599.99 on the Fenix 5 S Plus, which means we are talking $600 or $300. We're talking about twice as much. Now, here's another thing with this, that is with the Coros Apex, you are actually getting sapphire glass. So if we go over into the specs of this watch here, and we go check out these specs here, we can see where it says screen material sapphire glass. On the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, if you notice here, it says Sapphire Edition. I have it selected no because that's the one that I currently have. However, if we go to the Sapphire Edition, look at that price difference. It jumps up $150. So we're talking about another $150 for the Sapphire Edition. So we're talking now, you know, a difference of from $349 to $749. We're talking about a $400 difference between those two watches. And if we go to the 42 millimeter, it drops down a little bit to $699, but we're still talking about a significant price difference. All right, so for battery life now, let's jump back over onto their website and take a look because there is a considerable difference between the two of them and what you can expect for battery life. So let's go ahead here. We can see on the Garmin Fenix 5 side, we'll scroll down and we'll see here it says battery performance. It says up to 12 days in smartwatch mode and 8 hours in GPS mode with music depending on settings. So if you're using the music that comes in there, you're going to get 8 hours. You may get a little bit more, but it's like it says, it depends on the settings. So that's what you can expect. Now, if we come over here and we go to the specs of the Coros Apex, we'll see here it says battery life, it says 46 and then 46 and 42, but we'll see right here it says up to 100 hours in Ultra Max GPS mode and 35 hours or 25 depending on the model you have, but since I'm using the 46 millimeter, we're talking about 35 hours in full GPS mode compared to 8 hours over here on the Garmin side. So that is really just incredible. You're really talking about significant differences. And as far as just using the watch with regular use, you're talking about 30 days of regular use. And I can tell you for a fact that 30 days is legit. I've had this watch for a little over a month and I've only had to charge it one time. So and when you look at the Garmin Fenix side, you're talking about 12 days in smartwatch mode. If you work out and you run the GPS, it's not going to last that 12 days. You're probably going to get closer to a week depending on how much you use the GPS in the watch. So let's talk about features and functions now. And this is where the Coros Apex starts to fall a little bit behind the Garmin Fenix. And that is because some of the activities that are available on the Fenix are not available on the Apex. And one of those is walking. I'm a big walker and I would love to see an indoor and outdoor walking activity mode on the Coros Apex. They don't have it, but I do get a walking activity mode on the Fenix. Another one is audio cues. One of the main reasons why I bought the Garmin Fenix is because I wanted audio cues. I want to be able to hear through my earphones my heart rate information and my heart zone information and my pace and all the other stuff. Because if you're working out, let's say you're riding your bike and you're going 20 miles an hour and you take the time out to look at your watch to try and figure out what your pacing is or your heart rate or any of that, you could have an accident during that time. That's dangerous to actually take your eyes off the road to look and try and get that information. But if you have audio cues, you can set it up to give you all that information in your ears every minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever interval you want. You can have it set up to do that. And I really wish the Coros Apex had that feature. Now, as I mentioned, most of the features that the Fenix 5 Plus has, the Coros Apex also has, but another feature that the Fenix 5 has that the Coros Apex does not have is music. You actually have 16 gigs of storage on the Fenix 5 Plus so that you can add music on there, and you won't even need your phone if you listen to music while you're working out. You can pair your Bluetooth headphones with the watch directly, and then you can just go out for a run and listen to your music. So I have to say it does work really well. I've used it before, just loading music on there, and you have music controls directly on the watch. So if you're someone who likes to go out light when you're working out, or if you just go out and you forget your phone, no worries, because you have your watch, you can load your music on there. If it's already loaded on there, you can load it on there and listen. And you can also have music services on there as well. So if you have something like Spotify, you can load your music services on there as well. All right, so this next category is compatibility, and both of these watches work with iOS and Android, which is fantastic, but the Coros Apex to me has been more stable. So I have both of these watches connected to my phone, and I have noticed that almost every single day, my Garmin Fenix 5 Plus comes disconnected. It becomes disconnected from my phone. I have to go in there and try and reestablish a connection. It is a hassle when I try and sync it. You need that connection between the watch and your phone in order to get those audio cues coming through. And I have had my workouts delayed numerous times when I'm trying to reestablish a connection before I go out, or I go and start working out. I'm not getting audio cues, and I realize it's the watch is not disconnected. The watch is disconnected, and I'm trying to connect it while I'm out and about. And it's really a pain in the butt. Whereas the Coros Apex, I've only had it, for about a little over a month, and it's only come disconnected from my phone one time during that month, and it was relatively easy to get it reconnected. So I'm giving this one to the Coros Apex. All right, so this last category that I want to talk about is looks and comfort. And I have to say that these look really similar. I mean, both of them are round-faced watches. They're a very similar size. The Coros Apex comes in a 42 millimeter or a 46 millimeter. The Garmin Fenix will come in a 42 millimeter or a 47 millimeter. It also comes in a larger one, which I believe is a 51 millimeter. But the 46 and 47 look almost identical. And I do think that the Coros Apex is a little bit easier to read. It feels like the backlight on the watch is a little bit brighter than the one on the Fenix 5 Plus, so it's a little bit easier to read under most conditions. However, with comfort, it's still, I think the Coros is a little bit more comfortable. As much as I love my Fenix 5, it's just not always the most comfortable watch to wear. It's heavy. I mean, considerably heavier. The 46 millimeter version is 96 grams, whereas the 46 millimeter of the Coros Apex is 55 grams. And it may not seem like it's that much of a difference, but since we're only talking about grams, but I mean, that's a considerable amount of weight, and you notice it when you have the two of them on your wrist. You feel that Fenix 5. Even when you don't have anything else on your other wrist, if you just have the Fenix 5 on your wrist, it's heavy. You really notice it there, and I kind of wish that it was a little bit lighter. I don't know what they'd have to make it out of. Maybe they have to make it out of, carbon fiber or something, but I really wish this watch was lighter. The Coros Apex is much more comfortable with its lighter 55 grams. All right, everyone, so there you have it. That is a look at the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus and the Coros Apex, and I have to say both of these are fantastic watches. I have the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus in the 47mm and the Coros Apex in the 46mm, and both of them look good. They look very similar. They mostly have very similar functions and features. Now, there are a few differences, a couple of key differences for me. One of them being that the Garmin has a walking activity mode in there, which is something the Coros Apex does not have, that I really miss because I'm a big walker. Also, the Garmin offers audio cues, which the Coros Apex does not, which is something else that I really miss and I wish it had, because that is one of the main reasons I bought the Garmin, is for those audio cues. And so, yeah, it's, I think if those two things are not important to you, if you're not really concerned about the audio cues or having a walking activity on your watch, the Coros Apex is the way to go, because it's going to be considerably less money, and you're going to get the functionality most of the functionality that you're going to get on the Garmin Fenix 5 or the Garmin Fenix series in general. Also, with the Coros Apex, you're going to get better battery life, considerably, significantly. I mean, you're talking about more than twice the battery life on the Coros Apex with its 30 days of battery life with regular use. And the GPS is insane. I mean, you're talking about 35 hours of full GPS on the Coros Apex versus 8 hours on the Garmin Fenix. So, there's some other features you're missing. You won't get music controls or, or actual music storage on the Coros Apex where you get it on the Fenix 5. So, there's some things to consider. There are definitely some advantages and disadvantages, but if some of those things are not important to you, I think the Coros Apex will save you a considerable amount of money. So, anyhow, I'm going to leave links to it down below in the video description, both of the watches down below in the video description, so that you can check them out. I'm also going to leave links to my Amazon page so you can see all the products I've reviewed over time, and my social media contacts so you can reach out to me, well, anywhere else that you want to reach out to me. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Facebook. And I am Larry with TodayIFeelLike.com. Thanks for coming back to see me. Come back and see me soon. And until next time, love, peace, and hair grease. Peace.